storyteller, Ed Gein, the real Leatherface. The butcher who inspired horror legends. Everyone in Plainfield knew Ed as the quiet handyman, the harmless loner, who lived on a decaying farm, surrounded by whispers and dust. But no one knew what was buried inside his house or under the soil. His mother, Augusta, was everything to him: his priest, his God, and his prison. When she died, something inside Ed snapped, and what emerged was no longer just a man. Strange disappearances began. A shopkeeper gone, a waitress vanished, the town shrugged. But in Ed's shed, he was building something monstrous out of flesh, bones, and silence. He wasn't just collecting trophies, he was reconstructing his mother piece by piece, body by body, hoping to bring her back with skin stitched into suits and furniture. Police stumbled into his home, where a woman went missing. What they found inside made them recoil in horror: lampshades of human skin, masks carved from faces, dolls made from skulls. He didn't deny it. He didn't cry. He just sat calmly and described how he exhumed graves, how he chose his victims, and how he wore their skin to become someone else. Inside a back room, they found something unspeakable: an entire woman's suit made from multiple corpses, meant to be worn like clothing, a second skin for a second life. Ed didn't see what he did as murder or madness. He believed he was resurrecting lost souls, recreating a twisted family he never really had. The media exploded. People couldn't believe that such an ordinary man had committed such grotesque acts. But Hollywood listened and began writing legends. Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Silence of the Lambs, all were inspired by this real man, whose house was a temple of horror and devotion. They declared him insane, locked him away. But even in the asylum, Ed would draw pictures of women's clothes, of bodies with no skin, and he never showed remorse. He became folklore, the quiet farmer who skinned the dead, a living ghost story passed down in whispers and warnings. His house was burned down. No one wanted to keep the land where such darkness grew. But people still visit Plainfield, just to feel the chill he left behind. The legacy of Ed Gein isn't in his crimes, it's in how those crimes infected our stories, our fears, and our nightmares. Behind every horror movie mask, behind every scream in the dark, there's a trace of Ed Gein silence, smiling and waiting. Call to subscribe. Still watching? That was only the first of 4 chilling true stories. If you're brave enough, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell, and get ready for the next terrifying chapter. Story 2. Issei Sagawa, the cannibal who walked free, a true horror in 1981. A quiet, intelligent Japanese student named Issei Sagawa, who studied literature in Paris, but what fascinated him most wasn't words. It was flesh. He was small, frail, barely over 5 feet tall. He spoke softly, often nervously, but behind his glasses, his mind was screaming with desire to taste human meat. He became obsessed with his classmate Renee, a tall, kind Dutch woman. He invited her to dinner one evening to study poetry. She accepted. As she read verses aloud, he stood behind her, trembling not with love, but hunger. Then, he pulled the trigger. Her body collapsed on his carpet. Instead of calling the police, he began. He took a knife and started cutting into her. Not for science, not for art, but to satisfy something primal and forbidden. He cooked parts of her on a stove, ate them with mustard, took photographs, wrote in his journal about how the meat melted in his mouth like tuna. He stored parts of her in his fridge, wrapped others in paper. But it wasn't enough. He wanted to keep more, to preserve her. When he tried to dump the remains in a park, a witness called police. He was arrested on the spot, covered in blood and guilt. He confessed everything, no shame, no hesitation. "I wanted to eat her," he said plainly. "That's why I killed her." French authorities declared him insane. Instead of prison, he was deported back to Japan, where the system failed to prosecute him again. In Japan, he became a minor celebrity. He gave interviews, wrote books. Even appeared in films speaking openly about the woman he consumed. He walked freely for years, signing autographs, while the family of his victim grieved in silence. Justice had never touched him. To this day, many believe he manipulated the system, playing insane, then living in infamy. Not infamy behind bars, but under spotlights. Issei Sagawa never killed again, but he never apologized either. His appetite had been fed, and the world watched in horror and disbelief. He died in 2022, but his story lives on not as a legend, but a chilling reminder that evil doesn't always get punished. Sometimes, it walks among us.
Issei Sagawa lived free for decades, proof that sometimes the monsters get away. Call to subscribe inside the story. If you think this story was disturbing, wait till you hear what's next. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and join us for 2 more true horror stories, each more haunting than the last.
Story 3. Albert Fish, the boogeyman of New York. He looked like someone's grandfather, gray-haired, polite, soft-spoken. But Albert Fish wasn't just a killer. He was a nightmare wrapped in a cardigan. He claimed to have murdered and eaten children, not once, not twice, but many times. His confession stunned even the most hardened detectives. Albert roamed New York in the 1920s and 30s, carrying a medical bag. Inside it, a saw, knives, and a paddle studded with nails. He didn't choose his victims randomly. He selected them with care, young, innocent, often poor. And then he'd vanish into the fog with them. 5. In 1928, he visited the Budded family, said he had a job for their son, but it was their daughter, Grace, who caught his eye and sealed her fate. He returned weeks later, asking to take Grace to a party. She never came back. The family was destroyed, and Albert Fish disappeared. 6 years later, the Budds received a letter. It described in graphic detail how Grace was killed and eaten. Her mother fainted after reading it. The envelope led police straight to Fish. When arrested, he smiled and calmly confessed. No remorse, just chilling honesty. He said voices told him to kill, that pain brought him closer to God. His body was covered in self-inflicted wounds and needles beneath his skin. He claimed to have targeted hundreds of children, but no one knows how many actually died at his hands. He thrived in the shadows. Fish told police he enjoyed the act, the blood, the fear, the taste. He described it all with a poet's calm and a killer's clarity. He was called the Grey Man, the werewolf of Hysteria, and the Brooklyn Vampire, but the most terrifying title he earned it himself, the Boogeyman. He begged for the electric chair, said he deserved it. When the switch was pulled in 1936, it took longer than usual. His body, full of metal pins, sparked as he died. Even death didn't erase his evil. The letters he wrote are still studied by criminal profilers, raw insights into the darkest human mind. Albert Fish reminds us, monsters don't always hide in forests or fairy tales. Sometimes they sit across from you, smiling, asking for tea. Albert Fish wasn't a monster from under your bed. He was real, and he knocked on people's doors. Call to subscribe inside the story. We're just getting deeper into the dark. If you're still with us, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and brace yourself. The final story will show you what happens when the dead aren't left alone. Story 4. Anatoly Moskvin, the dollmaker of the dead in Nizhny Novgorod, Russia. Neighbors called him the quiet historian, polite, brilliant, harmless. No one knew he slept beside corpses dressed as dolls. Anatoly Moskvin was a linguist, a cemetery expert, and a loner. He spent his days walking through graveyards, talking to the dead. He claimed he was doing research, writing articles, but his real obsession was much darker. He believed he could bring children back from the dead. Over 10 years, he dug up at least 26 young girls, carried them home, cleaned their bodies, preserved them with salt and baking soda. He dressed them in frilly clothes, put makeup on their faces, played music for them, called them by names, gave them birthdays. To disguise the smell, he stuffed the bodies with fabric and sprayed them with perfumes. To outsiders, they looked like oversized dolls. He didn't see them as corpses. He saw them as his children, his friends, his family. He believed he was protecting their souls from loneliness. When police finally entered his home in 2011, they found a small apartment packed with horror dolls sitting on shelves, in beds, on the floor. One doll even had a music box inside its chest. Another had a voice recorder. Moskvin wanted them to speak again. When asked why, he replied, "I felt sorry for them." He said they were abandoned by the world, and he gave them a second life. Parents of the dead girls collapsed in grief. They had buried their daughters and now found out their graves were empty. Moskvin wasn't charged with murder, only grave desecration. He was declared insane and committed to a psychiatric hospital. He claimed he never harmed anyone, but the pain he caused was immeasurable, stealing peace from the dead and torment from the living. His case shocked Russia. It became one of the darkest examples of how obsession, loneliness, and madness can lead to unthinkable acts. The dolls still haunt those who saw them, and the question remains, was he evil or just broken beyond repair? Call to subscribe. If these true stories chilled you, there's more to come. Subscribe now, hit the bell, and join our growing horror community. The darkness is only beginning.